everybody. And why is there a giant logo? There we go. How are you all doing today? I hope that you're excited to be here on day 2 of our Peace of Mind Parenting Seminar. I'm just going to center you guys, if you don't mind. Okay, there we go. A little bit better. All right. Well, welcome to day 2 of our Peace of Mind Parenting Sleep Seminar. I am happy to have you here. So I'm very, discontented with my camera. You'll just have to be patient with me. But I hope you guys enjoyed yesterday. I hope that it was a good introduction for you if you're new to Be Baby. By the way, who here is new to Be Baby and has never attended one of our events before versus who has been with us before? I know a lot of you guys are watching the replay. So what I would suggest you do as you're watching the replay is just do hashtag replay and then say if you're new or if you are a repeat offender here. So yesterday we did a really nice introduction into understanding sleep or lack of thereof, right? Jessica, first time around, yes. So we spoke a little bit about, understanding that sleep is a little bit more complicated than we were told, right? We learned that newborns don't have sleep cycles, but they have different depths of sleep. And then we learned that as of 4 months, they start sleeping in cycles. And that is good, but also comes with its own little package of, potential issues and potential problems along the way. And then we learned that there's a lot more that comes into play, right? There's colics and then reflux and constipation and nutrition and development and overall health and patterned wake ups and separation anxiety and a whole bunch of sleep disruptors. And what we're going to be aiming to do over the first 4 days of this seminar is understanding the vast array of sleep disruptors that can be at play and then targeting each of them with an intervention. And so I'm a big fan of using examples to show you. I like imagery. And so the way that I explain it is in every good story, there is a problem, right? And in this particular story, the problem is the fact that we're lacking sleep. Our children who need sleep, they really, really need it because we spoke about this yesterday, right? What happens if you're sleep deprived? What happens? What negative side effects can occur for you and your child if you don't fix the sleep problem, right? Because we learned that sleep is not a nice to have, it's a basic human need like food and oxygen and everything else. So let me know, for those who are watching, what can you remember are some of the potential problems with lack of sleep for you and your child? And I want you to remember that you as an adult, you need between 7 to 9 hours of sleep per 24-hour period. So if we round it out to about 8 hours, that is 33% of your lifetime. That's a lot. Now, whether you believe in God or Mother Nature or, anything else, do you honestly believe that if sleep were not important, we would not be engineered to necessitate sleep for 33% of our lifetime? That's kind of a big deal. It's a lot, right? And thus, it can cause sickness, right? Because your immune system crashes, obviously makes you super cranky, right? It makes you emotional. It causes brain fog. You cannot think properly. You cannot make good decisions, right? Except for getting a sleep consultant. That's always a great decision while you're sleep deprived. Shameless plug. It causes a decrease in libido. We spoke about that, right? That was a big deal. 14% per hour of sleep lost. And then people wonder why a lot of marriages tend to fizzle out once you've had babies. And it's like, well, I've lost my libido. My entire hormonal system is off track. I can't remember my name half the time. And for most of the day, I have a tiny human that's suckling on my boobies or touching me in any way, shape, or form, which I love, but I'm also seriously out touched. And also, I haven't showered, right? And when I do get to put my head on the pillow, what do you start doing? You do sleep math. If I go to sleep right now and I don't have insomnia, so I fall asleep right away, I will be able to get 2 hours and then the baby will wake up. That'll take about 30 minutes. And then he'll give me another 2 hours because it's that first stretch. And then he'll wake up again, but then he'll start giving me 1 hour. And so if all goes according to plan, I'll get 4 hours of sleep. That is, the best case scenario. As you begin your night, you're doing sleep math, right? So we know that sleep is important. Now, in every good story, there is a problem, which in this case, we've identified lack of sleep is a serious problem. But here's the thing, oftentimes, when we look at sleep solutions, we jump from the problem to the solution. But if you've ever watched a movie before, you cannot fix the problem if you haven't actually identified the villain, right? Who is the villain? Who is causing all of these sleep problems? Who is the villain keeping your baby up at night? You need to know who it is. So, how do you figure that out? Well, those are our sleep disruptors. And that's why we spend 4 days identifying sleep disruptors. Because the whole reason that blog articles or generalized books, etc., don't tend to work on many babies is the simple fact that they need interventions that are specifically targeted to their unique sleep disruptors. Remember what I said about my 2 8-month-olds yesterday? They could be both waking up at the same frequency with the apparent same sleep problem. However, they have very different reasons for struggling with sleep. They have very different sleep disruptors, and thus the plan needs to be different. So when we work with people one on one, the first part is a really in depth evaluation so that we can diagnose, in a sense, what those disruptors are, and then use our vast array of, weapons, if you will, of interventions to make a sleep plan. And that's why we don't need to rely on cry it out or extinction or some sort of variation of that. It's unnecessary because A, does cry it out actually intervene upon a sleep disruptor? No. It's literally trying to communicate to a child that, well, don't cry when it's dark outside because nobody's going to come. But it doesn't actually fix a sleep problem. So oftentimes, when cry it out is used, the baby doesn't actually sleep all that better. They're sometimes still awake at night. It's just that they're not making noise, right? They're not communicating. And I would argue that beyond the fact that it doesn't help sleep problems and it's not something you want your child to learn, that you're not going to come, right? There's a second problem with that. What if there's something wrong? They are sick in their bed, they're super congested, and they can't breathe well, their throat hurts because they're fighting a virus, they had a poop, their diaper is full, there was a weird noise on the window, a bird slammed into the window and it scared them, right? Or when they're a little bit older, there's a weird shape in the corner of the room. It will happen, right? And you want them to call out to you when that happens, right? Children will have nightmares. Children will, get afraid of a sound. Children will need water every once in a while. Now, it's an odd thing and it's a every once in a while type of occurrence. So, for example, all of my kids sleep through the night, right? I have five. They are 6, 5, 3, 2 years old, and 10 months old, and they all sleep through the night. However, once in a while, one of them, is sick or has a nightmare and might wake up. I remember briefly, I think it was last week, my 3 year old, I think it was last week or maybe over the weekend. I don't recall. My 3 year old had a nightmare And no, it wasn't my 3-year-old actually, it was my 5-year-old daughter. And, we just went up and asked her what was wrong, and she had had a nightmare, and I said, "You're okay. You're okay. You're out of the nightmare. See? Mommy's here." And she was like, "Okay, I'm good." And then she went back to sleep. You want your children to, let you know if something is wrong. You don't want children to, you know, end up being quiet and not call for help. You want them to know that you are here, you are there, right? So this is why sleep education is so different. And the problem is most people don't know what sleep education is. All they've ever heard is sleep training. And you say sleep education and they assume the same thing. Now, you, as somebody who's watching this and who can now describe the difference between sleep education and sleep training, I'm putting it in your hands as a responsibility towards other mothers that as you go out into the world of Facebook, right, or Instagram or in play dates, etc., and you see or hear of a mom who's struggling with sleep and thinks that there is no solution because she really does not want to do sleep training, educate her on sleep education. Send her our way. Our email is info@bbaby.ca or info@bbabyusa.com, whatever you prefer. Write it down, memorize it, and when you see a mom in need, be the mom that instead of offering her opinion, offers her a solution. Okay? So now let's talk about those routines and those schedules. And my first question to you, ladies and gentlemen, if any of you are here, what's your relationship with routines and schedules? Is it a love-hate relationship? Do you love schedules and routines? Do you absolutely despise them? Do you want to love them, but they don't seem to love you very, very much? I find that with schedules and routines, when you say the words, you either get a mom who's very type A and who's like, yes, I want them. Or you have a mom who they do not work for her and she's like, no, please, no, no, I don't know. Don't tell me about schedules and routines, right? So here's the thing. I have 5 children that are very young, many of which, still take naps. My daughter is in gymnastics and they have a ton, of activities and what have you. It is completely unrealistic that we would follow a strict military style schedule with success daily. Forget about it. With the number of children that I have, we would never leave the house, right? We would not be able to leave our home. We would not be able to do anything because somebody would always be taking a nap or someone would be doing XYZ, right? We'd basically cook, sleep all day, right? There would be no possibility. So, in real life, schedules and routines are supposed to, and the way that we see them at B Baby, they are a blueprint and they must be flexible. They must be a blueprint, a general flow to your day that can also be flexed and changed based on particular needs of the day, right? When your doctor tells you, yes, you can have an appointment and it's tomorrow at 1 p.m., you can't tell them, well, I'm sorry, it's my child's nap time. So you're going to have to change your schedule, right? If you're from Canada, the opportunity for you to actually see your doctor are extremely limited. So if he says 1, you go for 1, right? You have no other choice. So schedules have to be flexible for them to actually work. So we use blueprints. Okay. Now, what is the actual purpose of a schedule? The purpose of a schedule is yes, you want to prevent overtiredness at certain ages. Remember how we spoke about adenosine yesterday? What does an adenosine do? Does anybody remember? What does it cause? Why is it important for us to know about adenosine? I'm going to give you a minute. Let me see if anybody's answering. I mean, it's a tough question. What does adenosine do? For those who watched yesterday, you can have the wrong answer. That's perfectly fine. You're trying. So sleep, says Eliza, releases adenosine. So it doesn't release adenosine. Well, unless basically it clears it out. So yes, okay. So as you go about your day and you are awake and you are doing things and you are active, your body produces adenosine. And adenosine makes you feel sleepy and tired and like you need to sleep, right? And a nap, or in our case as an adult, a coffee cup, right? A nap will actually clear out a portion of adenosine so you feel a little bit more refreshed. Caffeine, on the other hand, will just block the receptors for a certain amount of time so that you feel less the effects of adenosine. And then when you sleep all night, you're clearing away all the adenosine. So the purpose of a schedule for naps that has, wake windows when they're really young and then very specific nap times at very particular hours, right? As they age, it's really just to make sure that we're clearing out adenosine before we get to the stage where the adenosine level is so high that a child starts to fight sleep. Now that means that a nap time, for especially as your child ages, right, has flexibility. Obviously, a 2 month old, or a newborn, their wake windows are super short. They're like 15 minutes to 45 minutes, right? And we'll talk about why there's this span. So the flexibility upon them is shorter, right? You can play with them by 15, 20 minutes because, well, they're so short in themselves. But as your child ages and those wake windows become longer, if the wake window is 3.5 hours, well, 45 minutes plus or minus isn't, going to destroy it all. What you want to keep in mind is that adenosine. And the great thing about adenosine is you can see it in essence. Who here has had a baby, or even better, a toddler? Maybe it was your nephew or maybe it was your own child, but a toddler who stayed up too late one night because it was Christmas or it was a holiday and he stayed up way past his bedtime or perhaps skipped his nap, and he looks like he has sniffed cocaine for dessert. He has the zoomies. He is zooming through that house and he's laughing hysterically and he's screaming at the top of his lungs and he's happy. But in your mom heart, in your intuition, even though he looks really, really happy, you feel like he is a ticking time bomb. And that if he just so much as touches his toe to the side of the wall as he's running, it explodes. And it goes from super, super duper happy to the world has now ended and we are on the floor. We are screaming at the top of our lungs and we will not stop. And we do not remember what happened and why we're even upset in the first place, right? As Samantha says, glassy eyed and hyper. Exactly. I literally, like, they look like they're on cocaine, quite literally. They get so excited and so hyper that it looks like, you gave them something. There gets a point where the adenosine gets so high that they move beyond the sensation of sleepiness, right? And they literally get hyperactive, right? The delirious laugh, exactly. Exactly that. The delirious laughter. And I get that. Like, my husband knows if I haven't gone to bed early enough, we will get in bed and he'll try and sleep and I will poke him. I'll literally like laugh and be like a child in essence. Okay. Even I suffer from that overtiredness. So when you're looking at flexing a schedule, you want to take into consideration a few different factors. First of all, let's talk about those wake windows. If I have a 4-month-old and his second wake window is, let's say it's 2 hours, and since 2 months old don't sleep in sleep cycles, their nap lengths can vary, right? Because they can stay in deep sleep for 30 minutes or 4 hours. So let's say I have two 4 month old babies. Okay, we're going to take the same moms as before. And one of them, his first nap was an hour. And the second mom, his first nap at 4 months old was a beautiful 2 hour nap. Now, their wake windows are supposed to be 2 hours. Does it make sense that they both now have a wake window of 2 hours? One had a 1 hour nap and has a wake window of 2 hours, and one had a 2 hour nap and has a wake window of 2 hours. Does that make sense? Or do you see a potential problem? Depending on how long a nap was, especially with young babies who will have a normal variation in the length of their naps, the wake windows simply cannot be the same. But if you look at an app, or if you look at Google, or if you even pay to get a generalized sleep plan, they will give you a very set wake window, but it makes no sense. Now, let's say you're like, okay, Sam, that makes sense with young babies because they don't have sleep cycles. But what if it's a 5 or 6 month old who now has sleep cycles and thus their naps become a lot more consistent, right? And they're supposed to have naps, at very particular times. Well, again, it'll depend, right? I can have two 5 months old, and one of them has a regular schedule of 4 naps, and one of them has a regular schedule of 3 naps, and both of them are beautiful sleepers. It's just that they have a different internal clock for naps at this age. It is very common at that age to either see 4 or 3 naps, and it depends, right? That first child that has the 3 nap schedule might do like an hour and a half, 2 hours, and an hour, right? And the one who's on a 4 nap schedule will actually do like an hour and then an hour and 15 minutes, and then, an hour and then 45 minutes, right? Both of them are great sleepers, but they have a different nap schedule. So obviously their wake windows are not going to be the same. They're simply not going to be the same, right? I have, 14 months old who do an hour in the morning and 2 hours in the afternoon, versus I have 14 months old who do 2.5 hours in the middle of the day. It depends, right? And thus their wake window is simply not going to be the same. So when we're looking at schedules, in terms of naps, yes, we're trying to prevent adenosine to get to a level where it's dangerously high, in the sense where they no longer want to go to sleep. But there is no such thing as a military style schedule, because your baby's not a robot, right? And especially as they're young, that nap might be an hour, might be an hour and a half, and then you adjust. So when we serve you with wake windows, either your baby is old enough that we've been able to study his natural rhythm of naps, and thus we're able to give you a stable wake window, or your baby's old enough and we've given you very particular times for naps, but those are movable very easily. That's what we call flex sleep, and it's actually included in sleep plans, how to flex sleep, right? And we show you how to do that, right? So we show you in a sleep plan, first of all, how to fix sleep. Like, let's just focus on getting your baby to sleep through the night, or whatever is appropriate at his age, right? If he's 3 months old, we want one wake up at night to get a good feed. And then once we fix that, we start working on the naps. And once we fix those 30-minute naps into, longer naps, then we start working on flexible sleep. And flexible sleeps means flexing the environment so that they can sleep, in a hotel, at grandma's house while you're having dinner, in the car seat. We want to be able to move around, and then flexing on time as well, right? So you have flexibility so that you're not stuck with a super incredibly rigid schedule that allows no movement. And this is what we mean by schedules. Now, the other purpose of a schedule is simply to communicate to your child, your baby, that their needs will be met. So think about it this way. You are 9 months old. You're a baby, you're 9 months old. You cannot speak. Okay. Your only way of communicating is to pull on your mom's pants and scream and cry. It is very disconcerting to be hungry and not be able to go fix yourself a snack, right? And so when you create a flow to your day of like, okay, we get up, we have breakfast, we get dressed, we brush our teeth, and then we play, and then we nap, and then we eat, and whatever your schedule might be, over time, basically it communicates to your child, your needs will be met. You will be given the opportunity to cuddle. You will be given the opportunity to play. You will be, given food before you are hungry. You will be given the opportunity to sleep before you get too tired, and it won't take away on playtime. So you don't have to worry. You don't need to have FOMO, right? Fear of missing out, that if you go take a nap, you're going to miss out on this cool game because it's not game time, right? It's just a general flow to communicate to your child that their needs will be met. And thus they can sort of like take a deep breath. Whereas if you have absolutely no flow to your day, and again, if you go out that day, your flow is going to be different, but your child's not going to panic because the rest of the time you do have a flow to your day, and your child knows and anticipates that his or her needs are going to be met before they're met. So it leads to less crying, right? It leads to less panicking. And we're going to focus a little bit more on that on Thursday when we're talking about sleep disruptors that have less to do with sleep, but are still, in fact, sleep disruptors. Okay. So it is really important. Now, when we're talking about routines, then we're talking about something a little bit differently. Who here has a bedtime routine? I would bet that most people here probably know because you have a sleep problem. So you've Googled it, right? Or you've asked Chat GPT, right? And it has told you that a sleep routine, will help. But most of the time, it doesn't actually tell you the why. Why are sleep routines important? Well, remember how I taught you about pattern wake ups yesterday, right? Where the brain absolutely loves patterns and then tends to stick with them for better or worse, right? And that's how you can end up with they got sick, they were waking up at night, and it turned into a pattern. And now that the sickness is gone, the pattern doesn't go away, even if you change the schedule and everything else, right? Well, routines are somewhat similar. Routines are simply a set of action that you perform every single day in the same order at approximately the same time to basically communicate to your baby's brain that it is time to sleep. And why is that important? Why is that helpful? Well, it's important and helpful because there are different states of physical arousal, right? So when you are awake and playing, your heart rate's a little bit faster. There's a lot of blood flow in your muscles because you're learning to crawl and you're doing all these things. But when you want to sleep, obviously, you need that blood flow to move away from your muscles and into your digestive system, right? And into making sure your lymphatic system can do the big work that it has to do, that your immune system can do the big work that it has to do, that big digestive work happens at night, right? And to calm down your brain and slow everything down and slow down your breathing. And it's a low state of physical arousal, right? Kind of like excitement versus calm. Well, by putting on a simple sleep routine, which is maybe 3 or 4 actions that are in the same order at approximately the same time that precedes sleep, after about a week or so, the brain starts recognizing she pulled out the lotion. She's changing the diaper. It means that we're going down for a nap. Oh, you know what? It's actually dark outside. We're going down for nighttime sleep. Let's slow the machine down, right? That's literally what a routine is per se. Okay. So we exercise, then the lotion and the diaper change, a bottle or breast milk, and then bedroom prayers book, and mommy to finish eating, right? So bedtime routine doesn't need to be complicated. Okay. It just needs to be relaxing. I'm a big fan of massaging them while applying lotion and putting their little PJs on and then, feeding them to sleep. Oh my God. Did I just say feeding them to sleep? Remember how I said I was going to say things that go against everything you have read online and everything every other sleep consultant has ever told you? I encourage you to feed your babies to sleep. Here's the thing. Feeding to sleep at bedtime is not a negative sleep association. It is a positive sleep association. There is nothing wrong with it. In fact, if you happen to be breastfeeding, your breast milk is literally made with an agent in it that puts your child to sleep. It is literally magic sleeping liquid, okay? And if you're breastfeeding at night, let's say you have a newborn and you wake up and you give him that feed, it also knocks you out. Okay. So it makes you sleep better. Okay. You were literally given 2 bags of milk right there, right? With a magic compound that knocks out your baby to sleep. Use it. Okay. There is no such thing as feeding your baby to bedtime and it meaning that your baby is going to have sleep problems. Okay. It is not true. I have many families that mom still feeds that baby to sleep. But if dad is alone with baby, he can put him to bed with a bottle, no problem. And the baby does not wake up at night for feeds, even though he did when we first met each other before we sleep educated. It has nothing to do with it. The only time that a sleep consultant is going to tell you that you cannot feed a baby to sleep is when that sleep consultant is going to use cry it out or a variation of. Because if you're using cry it out or a variation of, you can't feed a baby to sleep because in those techniques there's no physical contact that can be had because it's not actually a technique. So if somebody tells you that they do gentle sleep training but you can't feed your baby to sleep, run in the opposite direction. And it's not because they're a bad person. It's simply that there is no regulation on being a sleep consultant, and most sleep consultants have no supervision. They are not healthcare professionals. They literally did a course online. They submitted a few mock cases, right? And then they work on their own. And they only have that one method that they were taught, and that's it. Our sleep consultants are very different. They have to go through our academy, which is a very intense, in depth training program with a bazillion mock cases. And then they have to do shadowing. And then they have to do supervised care. And then they have to do semi supervised care. And then they have to do an entire internship. And even after all of that, they work under a supervisor within a clinical team that has a clinical supervisor. And I am a lovely boss. Wouldn't you agree? Right? I'm a lovely boss. However, I have extremely high expectations. So I expect a 100% success rate. So it is different. So it's not because they're bad people. It's not. It's just that the education is not there. The supervision is not there. The expertise is not there. We have sleep consultants who hire us to sleep educate their children or to fix cases that they were not able to fix. Okay. We have Instagram famous people who ask me in secret to sleep educate their children with NDAs and whatnot because they want to perpetuate this image that, it's so easy for them and so wonderful, but they need help. And I say no. I will not contribute to us fostering this image that you're supposed to be able to do this on your own and that you don't get help. If you want my help, I will help you, right? So that's the thing. You can nurse a baby to sleep, but if he is being nursed at night and is of age and of health that he does not need to be nursed at night, then he's using it at night in order to fall back asleep, right? So here's where a little bit of science comes into play. Um, Babies and humans in general, we have a hierarchy of needs. Okay. And within that hierarchy of needs, we need, physical safety, right? We need a roof, we need to feel safe. We need food, right? We need water and we need sleep. We need physical love and affection, right? We have to feel. Humans literally have a need to feel part of a group, to be with people, and so on and so forth. And some needs supersede other needs, right? So, for example, food supersedes the need for physical affection, right? If you're starving to death, your brain is going to focus on that versus getting a hug, right? Although a hug could help. So, when a baby wakes up at night because they have a patterned wake up, okay, and you have been feeding them at night to get them back to sleep because it's soothing and it's relaxing and it's, full of that compound that helps them sleep, which is great. However, you don't mind feeding them to sleep at bedtime, but you don't necessarily want them to use that as a way to fall back asleep at night. In fact, you just like the pattern wake up to go away, right? The issue is the brain sees food as very, very important. And thus, if the baby's been waking up every 2 hours because of colics in the past, right? Whatever started this, or the 4 month sleep regression, and you've been feeding him to sleep because it was the only way to get the kid back to sleep, the brain's like, oh my goodness, this is important. We're being fed every 2 hours. We must ensure that this baby wakes up every 2 hours. So, as simply put as possible, we have to replace the night interventions for those night wake ups from food to something else that helps them fall asleep, but is of lesser importance in the hierarchy of needs than food and sleep. So, for example, physical affection is in the hierarchy of needs and can be utilized to help a baby fall asleep. However, is of lesser importance than sleep. For example, and I'm making this as simple as humanly possible, okay? It's a little bit more complicated than that. So, if we use some sort of variation of physical affection to get that baby to fall back asleep for those, let's say, 4 wake ups a night that he was getting a feed, while ensuring that the baby is actually getting enough, food during the day, the brain will be like, okay, well, hold on a minute. We are lacking in sleep and we're getting physical affection every 2 hours at night. However, our need for sleep supersedes the need for this physical affection because we are getting enough of it during the day. Thus, let me eliminate this pattern. Now, obviously, when you're sleep educating a baby, there is more than one disruptor. So there could be low iron that we don't know. There could be separation anxiety. There could be a multitude, a handful, or 10 or 15 different sleep disruptors. But that is how we take one intervention and tack it on to one sleep disruptor. And by making sure that you've highlighted or you've identified every single one of those sleep disruptors and then put a intervention in place for that specific sleep disruptor, and then wrapping that up in a sleep plan that actually makes sense and is cohesive, because it has to be cohesive, then it starts to actually work, right? So that is as simple of an explanation as possible. But like I said, sleep education is complicated. It takes a long time for people to become sleep consultants with us, right? But that's why we have to go through every single one of these sleep disruptors. Now, we've spoken about adenosine. We now understand the concept of, you know, having wake windows or nap times and why those need to have a variation based on how long a child has slept and what the usefulness of a routine is. But we need to talk about implementing a sleep plan. So let's move into the future for just a moment, and let's say we're on Friday. Friday, we're discussing how to make a sleep plan, right? And we get to the end of that session. You have identified the disruptors, you have, targeted interventions, you've wrapped it up into a cohesive, beautiful sleep plan. And then you're like, okay, well, how do I start? When do I start? Because my baby is already overtired. So this is beautiful in all, many, many ways, but I don't want this to be like awful, right? So there's a few rules to that. First of all, and people tend to do the opposite, a sleep plan needs to be implemented at bedtime first and foremost, not at nighttime. The simple reason for that is the sleep debt is higher at bedtime. It is easier. Okay. Second of all, there is no way in hell that you can fix naps without fixing nights. If you come to me and you say, Sam, my baby's naps are really bad, they're only 30 minutes. He wakes up 5 times a night, but I'm fine with that. I want to keep it that way. I just want you to fix the naps. I can't. I can't. I must fix the nights to resolve the severe chronic overtiredness that your baby is carrying in order to have a chance for the naps to be better. So typically, we start by fixing the night and we implement the plan at bedtime first and foremost. And once the nights have been really good and stable for at least a week, then either the naps basically self resolve or we can start working on them and they get fixed over time, right? It's a little bit different. Now, the other thing is, well, what if you're like, great, I'm going to start at bedtime. That's wonderful. But my baby's only taking like 2 30 minutes naps during the day and he's 4 months old. And obviously, that is not enough. And thus, by the time we get to bedtime, he's like severely overtired and it's going to make this really difficult. And again, I'm going to say something that a sleep consultant has told you not to do. When you start a sleep plan, if you need to save a nap, save a nap. That means if your baby sleeps well while you are holding him for the first few days, or especially that first day of a implementing a sleep plan, save the naps. Follow a flexible schedule we've given you and allow your baby to sleep in your arms or go take a walk and allow him to sleep in the stroller and feed him for the full nap, whatever it takes, just to make sure that the sleep debt, the adenosine at bedtime is approximately where we want it to be, and then implement your sleep plan. The strategies that you utilize to teach better sleep and to eliminate ultimately those unnecessary wake ups will translate into those naps later on. Okay. It is perfectly okay and it makes it way less painful. Why do you think cry it out is so painful? They tell you not to save the naps. So by the time bedtime happens, that baby is excruciatingly tired and like he needs to be helped to fall asleep because when you get overtired, your skin hurts. You're sitting on the couch and you're moving in that direction and that direction and you're just so uncomfortable. The same thing happens for the baby. So at that point, the only way to get him to sleep is to knock him out with milk and hold him and bounce him up and down, right? Because he's just like way too far gone. But what they make you do is get your baby like super overtired and put them in a crib and then have them cry to sleep. So basically they're crying to exhaustion. That's really what it is. There's no science to it. There's no reasoning to it. It doesn't make any sense. And that's why there's so much crying because literally they put all the worst conditions possible to make this as painful as humanly possible, right? So that's why a lot of people are like, I don't want to do this. And most of the time, it just does not work, right? It just simply does not work. And when it does work, it's usually temporary. And if it is temporary and it backlashes, because it often does, it backlashes 10 times worse, right? I have seen families use it and they get, a little bit of result, and then it backlashes, and they use it again, and then it works a little bit, and then it backlashes again, and then they just end up doing this over and over and over again, and then their child is 3 years old and has the most unhealthy relationship with sleep, and it is a fight for the rest of their lives to actually get these kids to go to bed, right? It's painful. We also do contact naps, and it's been almost 6 months. Some people are telling me not to tolerate that, but that's the only way my baby sleeps during the daytime, unless we go for a car ride. Thing is, if you're struggling with nighttime sleep, Trish, what else are you supposed to do? The naps cannot be fixed without fixing nighttime. And here's the thing, when you work with a baby consultant, we're going to one of the things is we work with babies that are newborns all the way to about age 12, because yes, if you wait it out, you can really wait a long time for sleep problems to be resolved. We have families who come to us with 12-year-olds who, still can't sleep on their own. Okay. And the thing is, at different developmental milestones, what is adequate in terms of sleep is different. Okay. A newborn needs to wake up at night at least the one or twice for a good feed, because their stomachs are teeny, teeny, tiny. Now, they shouldn't be waking up every 45 minutes. That's a sign of a problem. By the age of 6 months, if your baby is at least 13 pounds, was not born premature, and does not have any other health issues, developmentally speaking, they are ready to sleep through the night. That doesn't mean they're actually going to do it without a little bit of help, right? But every child is different. So in our evaluation, we look at what is the right expectation for this child at this developmental stage, and when will be the next transition. So even if we have a lot of moms who join the programs when they are expecting, because, for example, our famous Peace of Mind parenting program, which is like the creme de la creme, covers your entire pregnancy for free, and then covers you within the same price as anybody else until your baby is 12 months of age. And then you have a lifetime access and lifetime guarantee. So that means we set the stage for good sleep from day one. If breastfeeding becomes a problem, we assist with that. And then every month, we're like, okay, baby is at this age. This is what we want. Let's make a new plan. Let's transition this. Baby is 6 weeks. It's really time to start including a routine to make sure that baby doesn't get a day and night confusion. Baby's 4 months old. He's going to go through that 4 month sleep change. Let's prepare him and make sure it's a smooth transition. We're introducing solids. Let's make sure, that goes well so we don't get tummy aches and whatever. We love that because it prevents you from getting into trouble. Now, we can fix it if you get into trouble, but I'd rather you just not go through sleep deprivation. I'd rather you just not experience, breastfeeding issues that prevent you from breastfeeding altogether, because it can, a breastfeeding issue can start like this and within a few days be humongous, right? So we prefer the earlier, the better. So sometimes people ask me, well, when should we start working with a sleep consultant? The minute that you're aware of sleep consultants, while you're expecting, or when your baby is not sleeping as great as he or she could be, and that you find a good sleep consultant, that's when you should begin working with a sleep consultant. The earlier, the better, because we can do more. Now, does that mean that once your child is 4 years old, you're doomed? Absolutely not. We will save you. We will fix it. That's not a problem. It's just that if I can save you from going through 4 years of sleep deprivation, I'd rather be able to do that, right? Samantha Miller, for example, right? She's like, I did contact naps with my 4-year-old until she went to daycare. It was the only way. This is what we call, going into survival mode. You do what you need to do to get through it, but it doesn't have to be so complicated, right? And tomorrow, we're going to be specifically talking about that long termness, because we're going to be talking about those sleep regressions, right? So, here at B Baby, we have multiple different programs available to you, but our smallest plan offers 6 months of support. Why is that? Does it take 6 months to fix a sleep problem? No. But there are sleep regressions. We want to make sure we're still there. Your baby will get a cold, the flu, or gastro, or an earache, or something. And we want to show you how to navigate that. Because the way we do it with sleep education, if your child wakes up with, the worst abdominal cramp of his life, he's not going to sit there in pain and wait. He's going to call out for you because he's been told that it's time to sleep and these are the boundaries. However, if something's wrong, you tell me, I'll be there, right? And we want to show you how to intervene, how to fix the tummy ache, right? How to make sure you're there when he needs you without it becoming a new pattern, right? A new problem. And sleep regressions, obviously, for younger babies or babies who still have sleep regressions ahead, play a large factor in that. So, all of our sleep plans start at 6 months of support, right? And they go all the way to 12 months or lifetime of access. The younger the baby, the more I prefer you're at least, 12 months minimum. That's my personal preference as a consultant because I want to make sure that when you sign out and you leave, like, we have covered everything. There's nothing I hate more than somebody who's like, newborn, I'm just going to take 6 months. And I'm like, what if the 9 month sleep regression happens and you don't remember what I taught you? I still want to be there. So, this is why we offer calls that are complimentary, that are free. And that is why you can't simply go on our website, choose a program, and buy it. I want to make sure that every single person that comes into our programs has first sat down with a consultant, told us what's going on. The consultant has had the opportunity to ask a few questions and make sure that we get a good overview of what's going on. And that she can then show you the program options, make sure you understand what's included in each one, but also give you her recommendation on based on what you've told me, this is the threshold. So we would recommend you start at this program and up, which means as of this program and up, they are all good solutions. What would be under is still a good solution, but is not my recommendation based on your specific problem. Now, for some of you, the cheapest plan is going to be the threshold to begin. But if you have a baby who has, 6 health conditions, well, perhaps we're going to have to start a little bit higher. But all of our programs are, we have everything starting at a range of like a total of $750 for 6 months. And we have payment plans, right? All the way to our famous peace of mind parenting program, which is like $9,000. However, comes with a huge tax return and even comes with financing at like $160 a month. And that one is lifetime. It's lifetime access, it's lifetime guarantee. And it's not just sleep, it is sleep, health, development, parenting, career reorientation. It is the summum of everything that we do at Be Baby. It is the only program that we offered for years because it is the program that I developed based on my research that I know is what people really, really need, right? And so for years, I refused to offer anything else. Now we do. We offer many more, right? There's many options between these. But even at the higher end of our program, we have payment plans with financing that can go as low as like $160 a month, right? And because these are tax deductible, because these are health expenses, you get a huge portion of it back. If you're lucky enough to get HSAs, we provide receipts for that. And it starts really, really low, right? So you could be paying like $60 a month, $100 a month, right? $40 a week for Inner Circle, which is like a mid-zone program. So there's something for everyone within that. But yet we don't make it available online because I have to make sure, or whoever, meets with you, make sure that they tell you in full honesty, there are regressions at this, your baby has shown a tendency for X. I personally recommend this. And they will give you the lowest threshold, right? And they'll walk you through those programs. And that's why, there is no one size fits all. And that's why we're spending 4 days going over the sleep regressions. Is sleep education different to pick up, put down, shush pat, check in console? check and console really sounds like a variation of Ferber, or the chair method. So those are what we call generalized plans, right? Which you can sort of Google. The problem with that is within those individual plans, there are interventions that we may use. But when we make a sleep plan, it's usually a combination of interventions from three, four, five different methods. And then we've modified them specifically for each child. So your sleep plan might have some things that you've seen in other methods, but put in a specific order and mixed and matched with different ones that are based on your child's specific needs. Because it's rare that you can, I mean, I've never seen it's very rare that you would see a baby actually be sleep educated with pick up, put down on its own. It can be a good starting point, but it won't get you there, right? And then, sleep history is different. If you've had a baby who has been co sleeping with you, there is no way we can put that baby in a crib and walk away, even if it's just for 5 minutes. He's sleeping in your arms with your boob in his mouth all night long. That is way too hard, right? That is way too intense of a separation, right? It has to be completely customized. And it's often not about that one intervention or that one intervention. It is the mixing and the matching and the perfect molding of that intervention with that intervention with that intervention with this, with that. Sometimes it's actually super simple. And sometimes it's incredibly complex. The simplest case I've ever had, and I've had a few simple cases, was a baby whom I believe her mom had um, three different sleep consultants, something around those lines. Baby was 9 months old. And despite all of that, the baby was still waking up at night. And she was kind of thrown for a loop there. And so her pediatrician, who happened to know about baby, said, "Hey, you know, they're the people. They're the end of that train track. So, if they can't fix it, nobody can." And I looked over the sleep plans that this baby had gone through prior, right, to sort of see what had been done or where the mistakes might have been. And I was looking at that, I was like, they're not great, but they're not bad either. And one after, like, he should be further along than he is. So I'm wondering what's going on. And as I did that evaluation, I thought, you know what? I think he might have a low threshold of light for melatonin. And so I told him, let's just test something. And I said, I want you to take, a piece of black tape and electric tape, right? And I want you to put it over the little light that shines from the baby monitor in his room, just for one night, just to see. Baby slept through the night. That was it. That was done. And these parents had paid quite a bit of money to sleep educate. And they were like, that is the best money I've ever spent in my life. It was painless. It took 24 hours and baby was sleeping through the night. It was perfect. I have once actually, we rarely, we don't really get complaints, right? When you fix sleep problems, people don't tend to complain. But we actually did get one complaint once. The mom complained that it was too quick. I believe we fixed her sleep problem in a matter of days. And she was like, I paid, I think she paid $750. And, it was too easy. And I literally responded, would you have liked for my sleep consultant to be less competent and make you suffer longer to sleep educate? Right? Usually the faster the better, right? In this case, it was an easy fix. Now, there are cases that are a lot more complicated. We've had cases where the baby actually has a lot of underlying, sleep disruptors, health conditions that had not been diagnosed that we ended up helping with diagnosing. But in the end, we get to where we need to be. Okay, so Kayla says, I thought giving space to a baby while she's crying is allowing her a chance to learn to self soothe. crying is protesting a routine she's not used to and doesn't last long. I felt like a gentle method I tried with my girl, the chair method, was more frustrating to her than a mix of fervor and pick up, put down, like ripping wax strips slowly. It hurt more than ripping quickly. You make a point with that. And that's the thing is every baby's personality is going to be different. Every sleep disruptor and cause is going to be different. So there is such a thing as learning to self soothe in some cases, not in all cases. And it's not about letting them cry, it's about teaching them how to, right? Actually giving them tools to do that. And then there's a big difference between whining, right? Or like making a what's the word, like a rumbling sound as they're trying to soothe themselves to sleep versus being in a panic. There's a difference between a toddler being frustrated with you, that he can see your boob, that he can smell the milk, but you're not giving it to him and he's frustrated and he's, saying, "Give me the boob," versus a child that is in fear and in anxiety, because the true reason for their sleep problem is separation anxiety. And they feel, because here's the thing, at 9 months, and we'll talk about this on Thursday, tomorrow actually, um, at 9 months, they get object permanence. So at that point, there's this phase where when you walk out the door, to them, it's equivalent to you being in China on the other side of the planet. Okay. So that's why it's important to understand each developmental stage and each individual baby. Because for one baby, a little bit of space may actually be good. But for the other baby, it might actually be disastrous. It might be fear inducing. So a little bit of whining because I can smell the milk. Give me the milk. It'll be faster. It'll knock me out. Versus a baby crying out of fear is completely different, right? Or we've had some babies, they don't whine or cry, but they develop this method to help themselves lull to sleep at first, where they'll lay in bed and they go like, because it makes their chest sort of like um, have this vibration, right? And it helps them fall asleep. A lot of babies do that in car seats when they're falling asleep in their car seats. That's why they like car seats, because it has, this smooth little, very grunting sort of like, man, my English is bad today. Guys, I've been learning Spanish and I'm actually French and my second language is English. And because I'm learning Spanish, it's messing with my French and thus it's messing with my English. And even my phone is having, a total meltdown and it auto corrects in the weirdest way. But it causes a vibration in their chest and it helps them slowly, fall asleep, right? I was told by Kayla that if you give in, it's showing the baby that you don't have faith in their capabilities and it reinforces crying. They are smart and learn fast. If they cry a certain level of amount and rush into then they will continue to do that. So again, there's circumstances in which that's true. So let's say um, your toddler is 2 years old. He just had a snack and you're serving lunch in 30 minutes, but he wants that chocolate bar up there and he wants it now. Okay. And he throws a tantrum. And you take the time to get to their level and explain that you're making lunch. You show them, "I'm making lunch. Do you want to help me make lunch? But we can't have the chocolate." And your toddler's like, you are going to give me that chocolate. And he throws himself on the ground and starts crying, etc. If you cave in and give him the chocolate, you have now taught your child, mama's weak. Okay. And if she says no chocolate, but I want the chocolate, if I scream loud enough for approximately 5 minutes, she's going to give me that chocolate. And that's true, right? As long as you've explained all the steps prior. So there is some truth to it. However, if your child's been co-sleeping and breastfeeding at night and you put him in the bed and you're like, "You've got this," and you just leave, right? And you stay out of the room until they fall asleep, you have not taught them how to fall asleep. You have not given them the capability of falling asleep. You've literally disappeared, right? Let's say they're 9 months old and they're in that phase of separation anxiety. They now think you're gone. You could be right on the other side of that door, but he or she thinks you have left the building, you are gone. They are all alone, right? And they're in full on panic. Okay. So um it depends. So you're right, but then no, right? And that's the problem with these a lot of these sleep consultants is they know one method, they know a few, rules or answers that the other sleep consultant gave them, and there's no variation to it, right? So it's a yes and a no, but it depends on the circumstance, right? And there's usually another way. Now, a 2-year-old having tantrums, your 2-year-old will have tantrums. They will cry every once in a while, and you're going to have to be okay with that because 2-year-olds have tantrums. It is what they do. And we'll talk about it more, on day 4 specifically. Lynn says, I didn't realize how much noise babies make in their sleep. My baby is so active and it's tricked so many times to tend to her, but then she's actually asleep, especially newborns. Who has had a newborn that you can't sleep while the newborn is sleeping because they're farting and they're grunting and their legs are lifting and they're going left and right and up and down and side to side and all the things, and then another fart comes out and then they start, going in their sleep like they're having the biggest snack in the world, right? And you're like, are you asleep? You're not asleep. You're asleep. You're not asleep. Are you asleep? You're not asleep. And you're a newborn mom, right? And you read that you should feed them before they start screaming, right, for milk. But then you can't sleep because every fart wakes you up because your body literally is engineered to wake you up at the slightest little sound, right? Sarah says we had to switch my son to his own room at 4 weeks because he was such a noisy sleeper. He just kept waking him thinking he was already awake. Exactly. I've had a mom tell me, he's not sleeping. And I knew we had fixed the sleep problem and that baby was sleeping, but she would hear a sound. And so we got her to get a sleep monitor and we showed her, look, he is sleeping. He's just farting. Right? And so some babies are like that. They sleep really well. They're 6 weeks old, wake up once per night, get a quick feed, go back to sleep. Exactly what we want, exactly what we get them. But some of them fart or wiggle their legs side to side. And it's normal and it's okay. I mean, think about it. Until just recently, your baby was inside your tummy, didn't have to eat food, didn't have to digest food, didn't have to poop out food. There was no gas, there was no cold or, being too warm. There was no extremely loud noises or too much light. They were in this perfect little cocoon and you were delivering nutrients, to them, right? And so, hmm, no, they aren't lucky. They're in a sleep program with us. That's why, right? Samantha says we take turns sleeping in a different room so that someone gets a decent sleep in each interval. Now that is just no, no. Book a call with us. Let's get you back in the same bed because you know it is hard to maintain the hotness of a marriage if you're sleeping in different intervals and in different beds, right? So somebody will drop the link to our calendar and you can go ahead and do that. Now, tomorrow we're going to be talking about the longevity, right? We're going to be talking about sleep regressions, what they are, what caused it, what is the source of the sleep problem at different, sleep regressions. Can they be avoided? How should you actually handle them, right? How should you actually intervene upon them? Now, remember that we have a competition, right, for a scholarship. And yes, if you buy a program and you win the scholarship, you get it reimbursed. And for the scholarship, which is announced on Thursday, FYI, you have a homework post that I want you to accomplish today. And I want you to take a moment to envision this. Okay. Imagine that, you pulled the trigger You got in a program with B Baby. It's, a few weeks later, we have fixed the sleep. Your baby is going to bed, and I'm just going to give you a generalized thing. Your baby goes to bed at 7:30 p.m., sleeps 12 hours without waking up, wakes up at 7:30 in the morning, and takes, I'm going generalize here, takes three, great naps a day. One is an hour and a half, the other one's two, and the other one's, that final 45-minute nap before, dinner. And it's very, at predictable times. Your baby's happy during the day because he's not overtired. You wake up not feeling overtired, right? You wake up feeling actually refreshed and happy. And you go pick up your baby in bed, and he's happy and waiting for you. And your day flows really well because nobody is overtired, and there is a routine, there is a sense of flow to the day. But at the same time, you can decide to just up and go have brunch and, shop, and your baby will sleep in the stroller, right? And that'll be fine. And then your baby goes to bed and you get alone time again. During naps, you get to do what you need to do. You need to perform self-care. And then once he goes to bed at night, you can spend one-on-one time with your spouse. Or you can go read a book in a bubble bath with a glass of wine. Highly recommend. Once we fix your baby's sleep, that's usually what I tell moms to do the first few nights, right? And then you can go to bed at a decent time and not stress, not do sleep math, because you know your baby's going to sleep through the night, right? And you can do other things because your libido is back if you so desire to, right? Or you can just sleep and read a little bit and fall asleep. Totally up to you, okay? How do you feel? How does it change things? Does it allow you to be a better mom during the day? To be a better wife during the day? To be a better woman? To maybe dream about a new career, to maybe, get back into a hobby, to learn something new, to go out and meet other moms, to, take up a new activity, to learn something new, to just be, right? To cook meals that you like to cook, to have a good day where you play with your baby and you read a book and you do all the things, and it's a good day. And instead of waking up and kind of waiting to be able to go back to sleep and going in with, I'm going to survive today, you're actually thriving, right? You're actually thriving and you look forward to the day because every day is different, and it's not, every day is like difficult one after the other. And that, you know how it is with kids, right? You get used to a phase, you finally figure out, and poof, they're in a new phase, right? And it's like, darn, now I need to figure it out all over again. But you have a B baby consultant. So before you get into that new phase, she gives you all the information you need specific to your child. She tells you how to deal with this, and that. Your baby doesn't feel well, she's right there and then. So it's short lived and it's quick because their immune system is like A1 because they're sleeping better. How would that change things for you? And post that, right? Question from Kaija. Sorry, I realize I only see your names on a tiny screen on my phone. And so I read that wrong. So it's Kaija. I've been saying Kyla. I'm sorry. If baby is sick or teething, do you throw out all the rules and do whatever to get them to sleep and doesn't ruin what we've trained? So we'll talk about that Thursday specifically. If they're teething, that doesn't actually cause wake ups. It can cause troubles with falling asleep, and we'll give you specific things to do to help them fall asleep. But once they are asleep, their body releases melatonin. Melatonin is actually a natural analgesic and will actually prevent the sensation of pain to be too much, right? And from waking them up. The exception would be when the molars are coming in, which is usually more around 18 months, although I've had babies, my babies. Some of them have them at 12 months. And that's an exception because the molars are terrible teeth. And then, that goes out the window briefly for a few days. Okay. Briefly. Because the reality is your baby's going to be teething like that whole first year. Okay. So we have to do something to help them fall asleep, but it doesn't actually cause wake ups. And we'll talk about that. And then when they're sick, again, all the ifs and their buts, we walk you through that, right? We show you how to do it. And that's why our programs are a minimum of 6 months. But that is the subject of Thursday. And it's a really excellent, excellent question. Because yes, if your baby has, an earache, and then you got to do something, right? You can't just be like, I'm sorry, but it's 3 in the morning and, I'm off duty, right? You have to do something. Um, if baby is asleep, wakes up to feed, should we keep the baby awake or let them fall asleep and move to the crib? Well, I'm missing a whole lot of information there, right? What time of day is it? What age is the baby? Is the baby sleep educated? There's a lot to be done. So Rami Mama says it is so frustrating because we had this from 1 to 2.5 years, and all of a sudden, for weeks now, we are getting middle of the night wake ups, crying, and won't sleep again. So there is a sleep regression at 2 to 2.5 years old. So that is most probably what you are experiencing right now. Um, can you start sleep education while a baby is sick or even while traveling, or is it better to wait to see results? So I actually have started when babies are sick, um, because we'll do it different. We'll start with a very slow progressional approach while the baby is sick, because helping them get better sleep helps them fight whatever virus they are fighting faster. And then once they're completely better, we can like finalize it, right? um, and while traveling. So we have actually sleep educated quite a few babies while traveling. Now, typically, what we do is we sleep educate and then we tell you to travel so that we can show you flex, right, of time and space. Um, but we have had quite a few where moms are like, well, I'm visiting family for a month or two, or that sort of thing. And we will sleep educate them while we're there. The best we've done is we've sleep educated a baby while mom was traveling alone back from a vacation in hotel rooms on her own. Um, and it worked out. It still worked out, right? So it depends on different scenarios. We might tell you, if you're going to be back home in 2 days, let's start in 2 days. If it's an extended trip, let's not wait because we can accumulate more sleep problems, right? And Natalie, don't be sorry. I mean, it's a good question. It's just, um, I need a lot more information. Like, he wakes up to feed. Should we keep them awake in the middle of the night? No, we shouldn't be keeping them awake. We should, if the baby's 3 months old and is waking up at 3 in the morning, where there is a normal expectation for a feed, and you feed the baby and they fall back asleep, you wouldn't keep them up. You don't do a wake window at night ever, right? Never, never, never. Because then you can, especially with little babies, you can actually get into a day and night confusion problem, which we'll talk about on Thursday. There are so many things, right? That can cause sleep problems, right? For different babies at different ages. And so you really need to like patiently write out the sleep disruptor specific for your baby. Or if you want to save yourself the trouble, book a call. Get yourself a sleep consultant, right? And let's fix it together. Let's get you better sleep. Let's get you back to feeling who you are. So, your homework post is to visualize what that would feel like and how that would change things, and then share with us how that would actually change things. All right, within the Be Baby family group. And I will see you tomorrow at noon Eastern time, same thing. And we are going to be taking a deep dive into sleep regressions. And that is no small subject. You'll notice that every session becomes a little bit more complex. And tomorrow is the one where it gets pretty complicated. And then Thursday, it's just a whole different set of, you know, complexity. So if you don't have that workbook yet, this is you need to get that workbook now. Okay. Ask, post for your resource person. If you don't have one, let's make sure you have the workbook, because if you try and write everything down that we're going to talk about tomorrow, you're really going to hate me and you're going to run out of ink. All right. Have a beautiful and an amazing day. And I look forward to talking to everybody who has booked calls. I know many of you have. Um, Make sure that you try and ensure that your spouse is there, right? If he or she has a say in this, then they should be involved. Okay. Have a great day.